there have been so many games that are coming out in 2020 that I've been looking forward to. I mean, we've had so many, from Doom Eternal to Final Fantasy VII Remake, Trials of Mana, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and now another game that I've really been looking forward to. It's been one of the top games of 2020 that I have seriously been waiting for, and it is none other than Disintegration. Now, this is a game that it's really it's an interesting amalgamation of not only first-person shooters but also of real-time strategy type of games. So if you're a fan of either of those two genres, this is basically going to be melded into one with a story that's super unique and incredible world building. And it's, yes, I'm kind of giving it away. I mean, this is basically a game you need. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm reviewing it for Steam, and I want to give a very special thank you to V1 Interactive as well as Private Division for giving me a review copy of this game for Steam. And yeah, I mean, we're going to be diving into it, about the graphics, gameplay, story, overworld, everything. We're going to talk about it all. With that being said, I'm Mekel Kasanova. I'm a Hawaii content creator, host of the #1 podcast in the state of Hawaii, the Kasanova podcast, where I interview various video game directors, company CEOs, voice actors, and more, as well as I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and occasionally on Saturday on twitch.tv/Mekel Kasanova. Here. And with that being said, if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's go ahead and get into this review of Disintegration. The story of Disintegration takes place in the far future, where humanity has been adamantly going through a process known as integration, which is a process that was developed to preserve the human brain in the chassis of robot interfaces that are canned. The Rayon faction are responsible for the ironclads, frost, and indoctrination that goes on during the process of integration, and fueling the worldwide civil war to suppress humanity as well as the naturals, the non-integrated, uncanned normal humans that remain. Our protagonist, Romer Scholl, is a former celebrity who was a host of a popular Graphically show, who eventually went on to become a vigilante that would go on to repossess and smuggle the anti-gravity vehicles that would become outlawed as time passed, which led to his incarceration in the Iron Cloud and run-in with our main antagonist being Black Shulk, who is considered by many as the leader of the North American Rayon forces. In Disintegration, we are presented with not only the story of Romer and his attempts at redemption, but also the fight for humanity against the tyrannical Rayon and to reboot humanity. Now, as far as the gameplay, Disintegration plays entirely different from any game that I've personally ever played, and exceeded my expectations exponentially for several reasons that I'll dive into. The gameplay is very diverse because while it is an FPS, it is also a squad-based RTS that combines both into a gameplay style that I have never seen before, that seems simple at first but gets addictively strategic the further in the game you go. The FPS aspect of the game has you in a hovercraft vehicle called a Graphically, piloted by Romer Scholl, allowing you to move around as you would in any FPS game, with the exception being that you will be able to float up and down, which takes some time to get used to, as the Graphically feels like you're controlling, a very mobile, I'd say Apache helicopter or so, as you shoot your machine guns on your Graphically and also have access to healing rounds from your secondary weapon that will restore your health for a fixed amount of time. To add to your maneuverability, you can do a dash boost that will help you get out of some sticky situations with a quick cooldown. Your health gauge does not recover in the way it would in a traditional FPS, as you will need to find green tanker areas to heal yourself and your crew, or utilize the healing ability that you have. There will be enemies that will, when you kill them, they'll disperse a green healing radius that will heal you for a few seconds, so definitely make sure to take advantage of that during firefights. The squad-based RTS aspects of combat comes into effect with how you can command your teammates, which is up to a total of 4, that will fight alongside you in battles, as you can direct them to head towards anywhere you mark on the battlefield, command them to open and scavenge items, disengage bombs and defenses, and target specific enemies you tag and or regroup to your location. Each of your party members has a unique ability that can be used at the tap of either the directional pad on your controller or numeric keys on your keyboard, along with the deploy button within a certain radius. Some of the skills that you can use are the ability to disorient and stun your enemies, and even fire salvo rounds upon them, and more, which is all useful as depending on how many people you have in your party. It also depends on how you can use them back to back, and you'll need to plan them out strategically. Then you can do more and just take down some of the tougher enemies with pure ease. Each of these abilities mapped to your partners has a cooldown of anywhere from 15 seconds or more depending on the character, so definitely plan out how and when to use these abilities. The AI of your team is incredibly competent and adaptive to the environments and situations that you are in, as they will engage the enemies intelligently and utilize cover and more in the environment to their advantage, as well as utilize different tactics of dispersing and forming up based on the amount of enemies and the situation at hand. When not in battle, you will be at your base of operations, which allows you to run around in third person and interact with your team and other NPCs and get to know them better and take on challenges that will be added to your missions, as well as being able to go into different missions and select the difficulty levels, as well as cycling over to your crew of outlaws and upping their stats based on upgrade chips you find within the missions using your scanning ability. You can upgrade your abilities from your defense, offense, cooldown, and so much more. There's also a multiplayer aspect of the game where you can partake in this game's version of Capture the Flag called Zone Control, where you try to control as much of the map as you can by holding down specific areas of the map, as well as the collector mode, where you have to collect as many brain cans as you can in the allotted time slot, and finally retrieval mode, where you can go between attacking and defending teams to either retrieve cores or stop the opposing team. As of the time of this review, I was personally unable to get any matches in, as I could not find any other reviewers playing the game that would allow me to play online with them. So in the future, I will revisit this mode later as I come back to update the review. Now, graphically, this game is gorgeous with how excellent the characters look, from the main character, Romer Shoal, to the crew of outlaws and various enemies you face, as well as the environments that you find yourself in on the battlefield. The design of your grav cycle looks incredibly detailed from the first person perspective, and you can see Romer's mechanical hands moving and reacting to each and every input that you do, from firing off shots to thrusting with your boost ability and more. The attention to detail and how Romer interacts with the grav cycle is amazing, along with your teammates too. Cutscenes look incredibly cinematic, and you're able to see all the minute and visible details in your integrated characters, such as damage or scuff and more from their robotic armatures, and the list just goes on and on. Like everything, even down to blades of grass and the environments, dust, particle effects, and the best part of all is the environmental damage you can do, like how you can shoot buildings and they'll just start to crumble as the battle continues. It's truly amazing. The developers truly put in a lot into making these models and environments look as detailed as possible, and it really shows, and I truly commend them for that. Since I'm reviewing the Steam version, I love the customization of the graphical settings, as I was able to change the graphics from the default 1080p with the smoothing set to the frame rate up to 4K at 60 frames per second on my secondary monitor, which I primarily played it on. And on my primary monitor, I pushed the frame rate up to 144 frames per second, and it was buttery smooth and never dropped a frame. My computer has a Zotac Gaming RTX 2080 Ti with 32 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 RAM for those inquiring. The voice cast of this game is all spot on, with perfect timing and deliveries for their various lines, and with great nuance and cadence. I love how Romer is voiced by my friend Jeff Shine of Resident Evil 3, as well as the upcoming Marvel's Avengers. And if you're curious, I do have an interview with Jeff Shine, which will pop up in one of the corners in the top or left or right hand corner, as well as a link to that interview down below. Jeff's portrayal as Romer comes across so well as the wisecracking, laid-back badass that he is, that it's just somehow perfectly portrayed with a character model that has no facial expressions, and yet the way that Jeff delivers his lines, it just makes you have that ability to understand and relate to Shoal and all, you know, and so much more. It's just so tangible, as well as the rest of the cast. They all perfectly deliver their lines with an equal amount of gusto. The OST of the game perfectly suits the world of mechanical outlaws and rebellion, from the cutscene music to the main menu theme and even the level themes. Everything is atmospheric and caters perfectly to reflect where you are in the game, with nothing standing out as odd or bad. The firing of your weapons and your squad's weapons all sound spot on, for the machine guns to the salvos to the explosions and more. Even the environmental ambience is done with such levels of care and attention to detail that you really must give it up to the sound team. They've done such a phenomenal job here. Now, honestly, when it comes to downsides, I don't really have much to complain about here, as the game doesn't really have any issues, other than I'm struggling to put it down even right now as I'm reviewing it, as it's incredibly addictive to play. Like, once you really dive deep into the system and you learn how to do everything and the RTS strategic nature of it, oh god, this game is so freaking good. Honestly, minor quibbles aside, the only thing I have is that when it comes to the human characters or the naturals, they don't often look that incredibly detailed. I mean, some do, some don't, and they often either look like they were put in or pulled from the wrong game, as they can clash with the rest of the visual aesthetics. And then there's the lip syncing issues going about, which are off by about a second or two from what the naturals say to what their lips reflect, which is, it's slightly jarring, but it's not fully, you know, immersion breaking or something that I can see as irrevocably or irreversibly an issue. I mean, I can see it patched. Yeah, I can see it fixed with a patch. I try to see if, you know, if I turned off the V-Sync, if that would help, or lower the frames per second, if that. But honestly, none of that was able to fix it. But other than that, I mean, I've had no issues. There's nothing else for me to report on as far as issues. Now, in the wrap-up, Disintegration is an incredibly addicting game when you dive into how deeply layered the combat system is, with its perfect blend of the first-person shooter and squad-based real-time strategy gameplay, which is just simply unlike anything I've ever played before. If you're looking for a game with a great story and incredibly rich world with an continuously building world lore, fantastic next generation level graphics, an Oscar-worthy voice cast of characters, and an incredibly lengthy single-player campaign with challenges and more thrown in on top of a multiplayer mode, then Disintegration is a game you need in your collection, and is one currently of my favorite new IPs of 2020 and in my top 5 games of 2020. You cannot skip out on this phenomenal experience that is unlike anything else you will play this or any other year to come. V1 Interactive and Private Division have truly made a true gaming gem that will be a long-standing franchise, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for this series. And with that being said, that's the review. That's the review for Disintegration from V1 Interactive and Private Division. And again, I want to give a special thank you to the folks over there for sending me a review copy of this game. It is truly, truly amazing. They've done so much with this. I mean, you know what? The game started off very, very simple, and I never expected it to be as incredibly deep as it is. And it hooked me from the beginning all the way to the end, and I'm replaying it again on a different difficulty. And, you know, as of the time of this review, I haven't really been able to play the multiplayer aspect on Steam, but once that's there, once I'm able to do that, I'm going to be doing a full in-depth on that as well. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys have this game? Is this a game you're looking at picking up? Whatever your thoughts are, let's get the conversation going down below. And with that being said, I want to thank all of my Patreons and channel members for supporting the work that I do, because without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. So if you're interested in, contributing in any way on Patreon or with channel memberships, links for all that are in the description below. Get you early access to brand new podcasts, interviews, reviews, and so much more. And also, we're over on Twitch. So check us out on twitch.tv/Mekel. We stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and occasionally on Sunday. So, plugs and everything out the way. I'm Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii content creator, host of the #1 podcast in the state of Hawaii, Kasanova Podcast. I'm signing out. I hope you guys have a beautiful and blessed day. Stay safe. And see you in the next one. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. And since you made it here, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And you can always check out MikelKasanova.com. If you want to support the content, we've got Patreon, as well as channel memberships and super chats. And with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova. I enjoy you guys. I hope you have a great one. Mahalo, and see you next time.